good?
All right. See who goes first.
All right, yeah.
I'm Jeremy.
And I'm James.
And we just play rock, paper, scissors.
He goes first. So, today, we're going to talk about DLC and expansion packs.
Versus.
Or just talk about them in general, because they're kind of the same thing, just with different generations.
See, that's where I disagree. So first, DLC, downloadable content. The idea of an expansion pack was that when you bought a game, after a brief period, you would buy an expansion to the game, usually about half again the size of the game, if not more, sometimes even doubling the original game. For instance, Command and Conquer. I remember the original Command and Conquer. The expansions for it were pretty massive. They added whole new factions and things like that. DLC is what we have now. DLC tends to be a lot smaller. Now, the price of an expansion was relatively more expensive than the price of DLC. But you got more content, you got more playability out the box. There's also the idea that now games produce multiple DLCs. Some of them, for instance, Fallout 4. The gameplay ones are considered pretty good. The building ones and stuff like that aren't. You get to something like Saints Row where you have, I don't know, take a guess at how many DLC bits you could buy with all the skins and whatnot you can have.
15,475,732.5.
I think that's a pretty fair estimate. But the point is, for me, I prefer an expansion pack. I prefer a big hunk of things, even if it costs a little bit more, so that the gameplay that I get extends longer, rather than having a lot smaller, even for a smaller price. And that's not even getting into the idea of Season Pass. But in a nutshell, that's the difference that I'm coming from between an expansion pack and DLC.
I'm going to be an adult for once, and I'm going to skip all the dick jokes that I just missed. So, you got a point. The DLC is smaller. Some of it's frivolous. Some of it is not. But at the same time, I don't have a problem with them either way. To me, it all depends on the content. I'm going to use Diablo 2 as the example with probably the first expansion pack to a game that I ever bought. You get an entire new act. You got a ton of bug fixes. There was rune words. They added more shit you could do with the Heraldric Cube. And I think the expansion pack was $30, $40. But it was worth every freaking penny of that.
On a $60 game. But here's the thing, too. No expansion or DLC should have to fix bugs. Period. If you're buying an expansion to fix a bug, the game is broken.
Agree and disagree. It depends on the severity of the bug. Plus, you have to look at the time frame.
If I bought the game, regardless of what game it is, and they say that to fix the gameplay experience of this game, you have to buy this DLC, it's the same as putting a paywall to the end of a game.
Disagree. Here's why. Like I said, it depends on the severity of the bug. You're not going to have a bug-free game ever.
No, you're not. Nor do I expect it. But if there is a bug, I expect it to be fixed without having to pay for that fix.
That's fine. You have to think about the time frame we're looking at. This was 1999. Not everyone had an internet connection that was capable of staying solid for God knows how many hours to download a 500 meg patch.
Okay.
That fixed the bugs in the game and whatnot. Granted, yes, it's a patch. It's not going to be that big. And yes, they did release patches regularly.
That's true. There's also the idea that you could get it for free from game stores. They used to do that, put patches on PC Gamer disc when they still had the Coconut Monkey and all that, and it was still a print magazine. But they would put patches as well as demos and stuff like that on a disc. You had to buy the PC Gamer, but you could also get some at some like Babbage's and Electronics Boutique.
Ooh, Babbage's. That right? Used to be my jam.
Yeah. I remember buying games from Sears. What up? But anyway, there was ways around that. You didn't have to pay for it. They could just send a bunch of discs to a store, and like a game store, and you could go pick it up there and do it that way. But the point that I was trying to make is the idea of an expansion versus a DLC of today. I prefer the expansion. DLC of today is not really fixing bugs.
No,
DLC,
it shouldn't be. Any bugs that come with a game, those should be patched by the developer at no cost to the player, especially if it's something game breaking.
Mm-hmm.
That there's, as far as what I was saying a few minutes ago, you were not necessarily paying for the bug fixes. That was just things that were included on the disc, so you wouldn't have to download it. Let's say if you didn't have an internet connection, or if you were too cheap to go buy PC Gamer, it was a thing that was there. Nowadays with DLC, I think we've only seen this once. I didn't go and look this up, but the only instance I can think of where the true ending to anything was behind a paywall was for the clusterfuck of an ending for Mass Effect 3. I don't think that's something that's going to be done because of the backlash that came out because of that. And honestly, if a developer is that fucking stupid to put their ending on DLC, they shouldn't be making games. If I'm paying $60...
So you're saying Bethesda is Bethesda, right?
Was Mass Effect... I don't think so.
No, who the fuck... anyway...
I can find out.
I know it's an EA game and how much fun EA is. But anyway, while he's looking that up,
yeah,
because that's going to bug the fuck out of us. DLC nowadays, if it's skins and things like that, I don't have too much of a problem with something. If it's something that you can absolutely skip if you don't want to, then that's fine. But when you have map packs, when you have characters, when you have classes, races, whatever, that have you have to buy the DLC to not only play them, but in some cases play with them, then I have a problem with that. I'm okay if, you buy a DLC pack and it adds a character or a race. That's fine. But there's some games that lock those characters can't even play with people that just have the base game. Whereas with an expansion, because it's a continuation of the game, because you have that block of game that's right here, and then you add this other block of game over right here. If you want to play with your friends that don't have the expansion, you still can. You're just limited to which was pre-expansion. They've kind of muddled those waters. They've muddied those waters. They've kind of made it to where it's easy to get expansions, DLC, but at the same time, sometimes it's not compatible with just the base game.
Yeah, that was a real big problem back in the day. Even with expansions, even stuff like Counter-Strike and with map packs.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those, if I'm remembering correctly, you had to pay for those map packs, and if you didn't get them, you were shit out of luck if your team had it and you didn't. I think maps and whatnot are getting a little bit better, but I don't honestly play enough first-person shooters or at least online first-person shooters to really comment about that.
I know Titanfall and whatnot is still kind of guilty of that, but there's a few games now that most of the DLC is just cosmetic. Most of the DLC isn't even power boosting. If the only way I can get the BFG is to buy an expansion, that's bullshit. If the only way I can get the zebra print panties, great. That's fine. I don't give a shit. If that's what you want, that's what you want, great.
Right.
But if it's a paywall to speed things up, or if it's a paywall to for power, if it's just a power boost grab, then it's broken. And that's why that's one of the problems I have with DLC.
I'm going to disagree with that. If it doesn't affect someone else's experience, I don't see a problem with it. It should not overpower the character.
That's what I said.
But here's the thing: I have a job where I work 40 plus hours a week. And I want to play with my buddies. I'm going to use World of Warcraft as an example. And they're all level 90, whatever, with their 13-inch dicks. And I want my 13-inch dick too, but I have to play 200 hours to get there. Guess what? I'm going to pay that extra $20 so that I can play with my buddies. And I don't necessarily see a problem with that.
See, no, because then you can just power through the entire experience, which is cheapening the game for you and for everybody else that's playing, because you don't know the ins and outs of the game.
But I don't give a shit about the game. I want to play with my friends.
If you want to play with your friends, then have them remake a lower level character.
That depends on you and your friends. Personally, I don't see a problem with doing that.
See, the problem I have with that is it unbalances the game. I can't tell you how many times I was playing a game like EverQuest and somebody just bought a character illegally or whatever, but they bought an eBay character, and your skill set isn't there because you haven't played the game to get there. There's something to be said about that. Like when we were playing Awesome Knots. Go see our video. We were playing Awesome Knots. We were having fun until we played PvP, because our skill level was so atrocious that the people that have been playing it for a while just, we were squibs. But the game itself was fun until we got to that experience. So had we been playing that game the entire time, we wouldn't have had that. So that's kind of the point too. You can affect other people's enjoyment by paying money to get the power. So if you're paying money to streamline certain things, as far as like maybe like, I don't know, better UI or things like that just affect you, but not the rate at which you progress, then I don't have a problem with it. If it's just cosmetic, I don't have a problem with it. If it is maps or anything that doesn't affect the game, for instance, one of the best DLCs around is and it started off because they followed the same model they did when they were doing expansions, is the Civilization series. You can play Civ 5 and not buy any of the expansions, and when you play Civ 5 with other people, they're playing Civ 5. But if you wanted to play Civ 5 with whatever expansion that added this, then everybody could do it. Like Civ 3 is the one that I've played the most of, and now, or 4. Anyway, you could buy the Warlords expansion, or you could buy the the whatever expansion, and that, if you had all of them, then you could all play together. If you were missing one, then that one was taken away from everybody else. So it didn't affect your enjoyment of the game or anyone else's enjoyment of the game. MMOs muddy the water, that's for damn sure. But a single game, I think you benefit more from an expansion pack than DLC. That's not to say that I hate DLC. Right. But I prefer the idea of expansion compared to DLC.
And it doesn't, I don't give a shit one way or the other.
Because you're a young whippersnapper.
We grew up with the same shit. You were just older than me. And we all grew up with all of this at the same time. And honestly, I could count on my hands how much money I've ever spent on DLC. Like, the only bit of DLC that I've ever really wanted to buy is the expansion or the DLC for Witcher 3. Because, hey, it added, 20, 30 hours worth of gameplay?
And see, that's another aspect of DLC and whatnot that makes it kind of shitty, is the Game of the Year version, or the gold version, or whatever they call it. When, I haven't bought Civ 6, the latest one.
5 or 6.
I haven't bought the latest Civilization game. I love Civilization. I've been playing it forever. But I'm going to wait until they're done doing expansions so I can buy it all at one go, because otherwise I'm paying, $50 for the game, and then $10 for this DLC, and then $20 for this DLC, and then $10 for this one. Whereas I can wait and pay $40 for the whole damn thing. I don't need that instant gratification, because I'm not really playing it online against people. I'm not going PvP. I'm just wanting to play it for my single player personal self. If James wants to play with me later, great. But there's that issue too. You spend all this money on DLC and you don't not everybody's going to do that. Not everybody wants to do that. And if you wait, then you can save literally $100 on some of these games. My God, Steam ran a thing on Saints Row the other day. You could buy Saints Row and all the DLC for $19. Whereas if you'd have bought that game new and each DLC as it came out, you're talking hundreds of dollars.
And that could be said for a lot of for PC games of the 90s where they started with expansion packs. Yeah, at first you would have to buy Diablo for $60 or Diablo 2 for $60 and then Lord of Destruction for $40. Or you could wait a couple years, get the battle chest that had Diablo 1, Diablo 2, Hellfire, and that for $20. There's no difference in that. Except one's called DLC, the other's called an expansion pack.
What he said. But that's my take on the expansion packs. Like I said, I don't hate DLC. If you want to get DLC, that's fine. I just wish that it doesn't paywall the experience of the game for your players that aren't doing it. If the game's not finished, fuck you. If it's more about having bits and pieces that add to the idea of it or fix, like, what Fallout did with the modding base. When people can mod it, then it makes it even better. But that's stuff that you don't necessarily charge for. But I don't know. DLC to me makes it a bit cumbersome sometimes, and I'd prefer just to have one or two full expansions.
Yeah, the DLC can be cumbersome, but in all, it's still, you're paying money for things that cost money to make. It really does. Even if it is a skin, how many hours does that take for the developer to make?
Yeah, but at the same time, you can have a Yugo or Ferrari. It's just a skin.
Can't I just have something in the middle? Give me something in the middle. Ferraris aren't fucking comfortable, and Hugos are pieces of shit.
Hugos?
So, didn't you just say a Hugo?
Or you
Yugo? Yugo, whatever. Ferraris aren't comfortable. Hugos are pieces of shit. Just give me something German engineered that's comfortable. I don't need Italian.
You think you don't. If you had one, you would understand.
Yeah, fuck that.
Anyway, I'm Jeremy.
I'm James. That's about it.